Today's topic of discussion is the substitution method. The substitution method is a method of solving system of equations by substituting equations within one another. We have 3 steps to solve this type of method. So step 1, we're going to solve one equation for x or y, meaning we're going to choose which variable we're going to isolate first. Step 2, we're going to then substitute this equation into the other equation and solve for the variable. And then lastly, we're going to substitute the answer we get from this previous step into the revised equation from step 1 and solve for the other variable. So this is all going to make a little bit more sense when we start doing our examples. So example 1, we have a nice pretty format since we both have two equations that are set up with y equals. So we're just going to set these equations equal to one another. So 4x minus 1 equals 2x minus 5. We want to isolate our variables from our coefficients, so we're now going to add 1 to both sides and subtract 2x from both sides. We are now going to be left with 2x equals negative 4. So we're then going to divide this entire equation by 2 so that we have the x alone, and that leaves us with x equals negative 2. So since we now have x equals negative 2, we can go back to the other equation and solve for y. So now we're going to do y equals 2, and we're going to plug in negative 2 for the x right here, since we just solved for it. So y equals 2 times negative 2 minus 5. So y equals negative 4 minus 5, meaning y equals negative 9. So our final answer is going to be negative 2, negative 9. So for example, we have y equals 6x and 2x plus 3y equals negative 20. Since we have y in a format that's easy to work with, we're going to choose to plug in 6x for the y in this equation. So now we're going to write out 2x plus 3, and let's not forget that we're plugging in 6x for our y variable, so 3 times 6x equals negative 20. We're then just going to solve this out, so 2x plus 18x equals negative 20, which then is 20x equals negative 20, meaning that x equals negative 1. Since we now know what the x variable is, we can plug this back into our original equation and do y equals 6 times negative 1, meaning that y equals negative 6, leaving us with our final answer being negative 1, negative 6. So we can move on to our third equation. Once again, we have y in a form that's easy to work with, but our second equation is not an easy to work with. So we're going to plug in y equals x plus 9 into the y variable down here so that we can solve for our x variable. So we are going to write out 3x plus 8 times x plus 9 equals negative 5. Continuing like before, we are just going to now solve all of this out to have 3x plus 8x plus 72 equals negative 5. We're now going to combine our x values and have 11x plus 72 equals negative 5, which then we're going to subtract our 72 so that we can isolate our x variable to leave us with 11x equals negative 77, meaning that x equals negative 7. Since we now have our x value, we can plug negative 7 back into our original equation to do y equals negative 7 plus 9, which then turns out to be y equals 2. So our final answer is going to be negative 7, 2. So now we can move on to question 4. So we have the equation x equals 4y plus 7 and then 2x minus 6y equals 12. We're going to do the same thing as previous problems, and since x is in a simple form, we're going to plug in 4y plus 7 into the second equation in place of the variable x. So we are now going to write out 2 times 4y plus 7 minus 6y equals 12. Multiplying everything out, we get 8y plus 14 minus 6y equals 12. Combining like terms will leave us with 2y plus 14 equals 12. And now we're going to subtract 14 from both sides to get the y alone. And we'll have 2y equals -2. Dividing both sides of the equation by 2, we'll have y equals -1. We'll then use this y equals -1 to go back into our first equation and plug it in to the 4y plus 7. So x equals 4 times -1 plus 7, meaning x equals -4 plus 7, leaving us with x equals 3. So our final answer is going to be 3, -1.
So now we can move on to question 5. So we have the equation 2x plus y equals -2. And then our other one is 5x plus 3y equals -8. So focusing back on our first equation, our y does not have a coefficient. Therefore, we're going to convert it to a simple equation so that it's easy for us to work with and plug into our second equation. We can now write this as y equals -2x
minus 2. So since this is now in a simple form, we can plug it into our second equation. So we will now have 5x plus 3 times -2x minus 2 equals -8. This simplifies to 5x minus 6x minus 6, which will still be set to -8. Combining like terms will leave us with -x minus 6 equals -8. We will then turn this into -x minus 2, which means that x equals 2. Since we have our equation for x, we can now set our original equation, y equals -2x minus 2, so y equals -2 times 2 minus 2, which is then y equals -4 minus 2, which means y equals -6. So our final answer is going to be -2. No, sorry. Our final answer is going to be +2, -6. On to question 6. We have our first equation, 2x minus 3y equals -11, and then 2x plus y equals 9. Our second equation is going to be the easiest to transform into a simple equation. So we're going to rewrite our second equation as y equals plus 9. We can now plug this into our first equation, so we can rewrite everything as 2x minus 3 times -2x plus 9 equals -11. Once again, just simplify everything. So 2x plus 6x minus 27 equals -11. And we're going to have 8x equals 16, meaning that x equals 2. So now we can plug this back into y equals -2 times 2 plus 9.
So now we're going to have y equals -4 plus 9, which then leads us to y equals 5, meaning our final answer is 2, 5.
I'm just ready to be done. But either way, testing. Continuing on, we're about to be done. I'm going to complete this system. Actually, I'll do 2 more. Okay. So now moving on to number 7, we have the equation x plus 5y equals 4 and 3x plus 15y equals negative 1. Equation in order for our x variable to be isolated. So we're going to change this to x equals negative 5y plus 4. And now we can plug our equations into one another. So we're going to do 3 times negative 5y plus 4 plus 15y equals negative 1. Simplifying everything out, we're going to have negative 15y plus 8, our y variable, and leave us with 12 equals negative 1.
Since we no longer have a y variable, we are just left with an x variable, meaning that our final answer is going to be no solution, and these lines are parallel lines. So now we can move on to question 8.
Our equation for this is going to be x plus 4y equals 0 and 3x plus 2y equals 20. Our first equation is going to be the easiest to convert to a simple equation, so we're going to change it to x equals negative 4y. We can now 3 times negative 4y plus 2. Multiplying everything out, we'll have negative 12y plus 2y equals 20. X equals negative 4 times negative 2, which leaves us with x equals 8. So our final answer is going to be 8, negative 2. So moving on to question 9, this is going to be the final one we're going to do for this video. So our system of equation is 6x plus 3y equals 54 and 2x plus y equals 18. Our second equation is going to be the easiest one to convert into a simple form. So we're going to change it to y equals negative 2x plus 18. We can now plug this into our first equation. So we're going to have 6 plus 3 times negative 2x plus 18 equals 54. Multiplying everything out, we'll have 6x minus 6x plus 54 equals 54. So our 6x's are going to cancel out, and then we're just going to be left with 54 equals 54. This equation is different from number 7 because we have solved for y and we have already solved for x. So one another, because these are the same line.